What is poppin' YouTube? The trade deadline may or may not be over for you, so I am bringing still some trade targets, but also talking to some players that I absolutely love their playoff schedule as we anticipate that some of our teams are going to have a deep fantasy football run. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. The first player we're going to be talking about today is Keenan Allen for the Chargers. Yes, the Chargers, who, let's be clear, Brandon Staley probably should be fired. It's been absolutely atrocious how they haven't been able to finish games. But as we all have saw on Twitter, the catch by Quentin Johnson, there is no clear wide receiver 2 in this offense behind Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is absolutely everything for this passing attack. And if we look, number 5 in targets, number 9 in target share, number 6 in target rate. In the week 11 loss, he logged 10 receptions, had 16 targets for 116 yards and 1 total touchdown. I'm saying this. If we look at his target share the last 2 games, 14 targets, 16 targets, 9, 10. I think this middle double-digit target number is where he's going to be. Anywhere between 11 to 15 targets a game, which is going to put Keenan Allen at absolutely top 5 upside rest of season. And as much as we know Keenan Allen is going to be expensive to go trade for, you got to go trade for him if you can. And if you have Keenan Allen, he's got an absolutely great playoff schedule down the stretch where he will be going up against the Raiders, the Bills, and then the Broncos. So that is some great matchups in your fantasy football playoffs. So go try to trade for Keenan Allen if you can. If you have Keenan Allen, congratulations. He's absolutely going to be a league winner for you. My second player that you should be going and targeting is Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne has had quite the last 2 down games when we're talking 6, 8 fantasy points in the last 2 weeks, even though he's been getting about a 65% snap share. But this last week had 14 carries for 52 yards and 0 touchdowns, 3 receptions for 7 total yards. It wasn't great. It was the Calvin Ridley show. You know, shout out to Calvin Ridley getting going. Travis Etienne, I think he's still a great buy low trade target because of their schedule coming up in the fantasy football playoffs. I mean, week 15 versus Baltimore is not great, but then week 16 versus Tampa Bay, week 17 versus Carolina, great matchups for Travis Etienne. And especially still, I still have Travis Etienne as a top 5 running back rest of the season. And let's be clear, I know the last 2 weeks have been down weeks. The Tennessee matchup this last week wasn't great, but the week before that was going up against San Francisco. So what do you think is going to happen when a running back goes up against San Francisco? It's not great. That's what's going to be happening with Zach Charbonnet if he has to fill in for Kenneth Walker over the next few weeks. We do like Travis Etienne. I'm still looking to trade for Travis Etienne. He's got a great playoff schedule, so do not be alarmed. Go try to trade for Travis Etienne if you still somehow have trades open, but just know that Travis Etienne has an absolutely great playoff schedule. My next player we're going to be talking about is Stefon Diggs. And yes, 6 fantasy points the last 2 weeks hasn't been great. When you got your brother having to tweet at Josh Allen at the Bills for you and your frustrations, probably not going as hot as you thought it was going to be going this season. He's still a top 10 fantasy football producer, number 4 wide receiver on the board. And like I said, this last week, 8 targets, 5 targets a week before that, 4 and 3 receptions respectively. Hasn't been able to find the end zone, hasn't been getting the catches, the yards after catch. And a lot of that can be said though, that this Bills offense definitely took a step this last week with Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir having great days. So it's not necessarily the fact that Stefon Diggs, what did you expect? This week he was going up against Sauce Gardner. Last week, the Denver Broncos defense has been a little bit more improved over the last few weeks. So I understand Stefon Diggs' frustration. I understand the Bills' frustration at the offense, but I still think Stefon Diggs is going to get it going as we come down here in the home stretch. So if you have Stefon Diggs, great, be happy about it. And if you still have trades available, go try to see if you can make a big offer to go get Stefon Diggs. I still have him as a top 5 wide receiver. I actually have him as a top 4 wide receiver rest of season. So go make sure you go grab Stefon Diggs. I don't think you're going to regret it. Absolutely love some Stefon Diggs here coming down the stretch. My next player you should go trade for is David Montgomery. And yes, David Montgomery had that game-winning touchdown. It was looking bad through the first half and then was able to produce 20 fantasy points on week 11, which is great. There's been a lot made of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and the splits in this backfield, and I totally hear you. There is a lot to be said. But when we look at David Montgomery, in week 16, they are going up against the Denver Broncos, who have given up the most points to running backs. So we like that for week 16 in the playoffs. I feel like whoever has David Montgomery, they're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs absolutely go out. And if you still have the trade deadline available, they're probably going to be a little bit worried. So definitely go try to buy into some David Montgomery. If you have David Montgomery, feel great about it if your trade deadline is passed, because I absolutely love David Montgomery in the playoff schedule that's coming up here for the Lions in fantasy football. He's my next trade target / feel good running back. My next player is going to be Bijan Robinson. And yes, everyone knows Bijan Robinson has been getting it going here as of late. But in week 15, Bijan Robinson goes up against the Carolina Panthers, which have given up the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs. In week 16, he's going up against the Colts, who have given up the 5th most points to running backs. And it's just an absolutely fabulous playoff schedule. And then when you get to week 17, it's even better. So if somehow you make it to the championship game, he's then going up against the Bears. They're the 6th against running backs. So Bijan Robinson is an absolute league winner. So like, if you have Bijan Robinson, feel great about it. His playoff schedule is absolutely great. If you can trade for Bijan Robinson, even better. I have had Bijan Robinson. I pushed him low. I punished him for what he did with him and Arthur Smith, but we always knew the talent. He's been able to show over the last 2 weeks. And then of course, this week when he was on bye, we didn't get to see anything. So hopefully he comes back and it has the same type of snap share that he's had over the last week and a half, which is going to be exciting. So go try to trade for Bijan Robinson. If you have Bijan Robinson, feel good about the playoff schedule. Moving on to some players that I am not necessarily as excited about. Talking about some guys that just have hard playoff schedules Eagles, and we will start off in the Seattle backfield. Of course, we don't know how long KW3 is going to be out, so Zach Charbonnet will be the Zach Charbonnet show. But when you look at Zach Charbonnet over these next few weeks, I mean, they play the 49ers twice, which is just enough for us to know it's not great. Also going up against the Eagles in week 16. So my thing is this, like, I love some Zach Charbonnet. I think the snap share that he's been getting has been great, but I don't think either of these guys, I mean, you're going to probably have to play them just based on how running back landscape is when you got a guy, a stud like a Zach Charbonnet or a Kenneth Walker, especially with these injuries, probably have to start them. I just don't love their schedule. So if you're able to get out on either of those guys, it's going to probably be hard to get out on Kenneth Walker, and it's probably going to be hard to sell Zach Charbonnet. I just wouldn't be banking on those guys being the league winners that you might think. Maybe they'll be able to sneak a few good performances in for you, but I am not banking on being elite at all. Our next guy is going to be Saquon Barkley, who caught 2 touchdown passes from DeVito. We were excited to see Saquon Barkley finally produce some type of touchdown upside. He just hasn't been able to produce that all season. But when we look at Saquon Barkley, week 16 is going up against the Eagles. Week 15 is going up against the Saints. So when you need him in the playoffs, I'm just worried about his matchups because the Saints, like I said, have been the 9th best against running backs this season. So it makes me a little bit worried about the schedule. Now, this week definitely proved me wrong, was able to get on the board, but how many of these DeVito amazing performances are going to happen for the Giants rest of the season? I think this is more of an anomaly than what is the norm. I'm just worried about Saquon. So if you can get out on Saquon, cool. If you've had Saquon, you've known it's been a roller coaster all season. I think we're heading on a little bit of a downturn here as we go over the next 2 weeks. So I have Saquon Barkley as someone that has a hard, tough schedule. So I am just going to be probably not relying on him or banking on him being the reason that I want to chip this year. Also, my final running back that we're going to be throwing in this hard, tough schedule that I'm not super excited about is going to be Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs in week 16 is going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which have given up the second fewest points to running backs, which has been sad. And I just think with Josh Jacobs, he really struggled in his week 11 loss, only 6 fantasy points. And yes, did he have a nice little run? He did. But when we look going up against Kansas City in week 12, we don't love that for this week. Then Minnesota, the Chargers, which is an okay matchup against the Chargers, but back against Kansas City, back against Indianapolis, then Denver. I don't love the matchup in the playoffs for Josh Jacobs at all. So I will be trying to get out, sell some Josh Jacobs if I can. And if I have Josh Jacobs, you've already understood. He probably is not winning you your fantasy football leagues this year. So just wanted to provide some trade ideas for you guys that still have the trade deadline open. Also wanted to provide some strength of schedule players that I'm looking forward to, not looking forward to in the playoffs. So let me know down below what type of trade questions you have, what type of start sit questions as we approach Thanksgiving. It's going to be a quick week. We've got my running back and wide receiver start sit videos dropping on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.